Hello everyone, my name is Tila. We're here for Antunez Design and a collaboration that we're going to be introducing here in a second. But first we want to introduce our special guest. Mary Robbins, a senior designer for Antunez Design, is here, as well as Calvin Pictel. He is a manager, an operations manager for his non-for-profit, which we're going to introduce here in a second. But both of you, welcome in, and it's a pleasure to have you both.
Well, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And so Mary, we'll start with you. What's your role with Antunez Design right now?
As a senior designer with Antunez Design, I meet with clients. I, find out what their needs are, what kind of lifestyle they lead. I put them through an interview process. Then I go ahead and I design, whether it's like the front yard plan or an entire yard of individual rooms, or outdoor kitchens, hardscaping. I put that on paper for them. I sell it to them. We manage it afterwards, so we sometimes steward properties for long periods of time, since some of our clients are long-term. But for the most part, that's basically what I do. I also procure plants. I kind of run the seasonal decor end of things as well, and take on really, really interesting other projects as needed, which has to do with Calvin here.
Nice. So you do it all.
Well, we're a very small company, so we all do pitch in, and the idea is to, exceed our clients' expectations, of course. But there's a lot to be done, and sometimes, somebody's really busy in one area, so I can pick up in another area if I have to. I've been doing this for about 25 years, so I've worn a lot of hats over the course of the years. So, I know they rely on me to do many things. But number one, my original passion, and it will always be a passion of mine, is to actually design and do wonderful spaces for fantastic people, whether that's a client that spends, $1 million a year, or whether it's a client that spends nothing. It's just do my best for all of it, and what we're doing for good as a complete company right now is really becoming more of a passion for me. So yes, the reality of it is we have to make money, but on the other hand, if your soul is dying, you need to take on good projects like this, and you know that, Eddie. You know that, Calvin. Your soul can die in corporate America or whatever business you're working in if you are not doing something that's incredibly meaningful and really touches you to the core. And this project has done that with me. So.
It's awesome. Awesome. Well, I know you guys collaborate and network with many people. One of the great ones here that we are going to be talking about today is with the Growing Healthy Veterans non-profit, which Calvin, you're part of. You're the director of operations for that. Talk a little bit more about the non-for-profit organization.
Yeah, so I am the operations manager for Growing Healthy Veterans. It's a non-for-profit that was started in 2016. There was an Air Force veteran named Marshall Fox and Lucan Paulus, who was certified in sustainable agriculture as well as horticultural therapy. They shared a passion for the benefits that horticultural therapy brings and the need that has arisen for the veterans to have that kind of therapy. So Marshall was tied into the VA and the Federal Healthcare Center, and Lucan basically had access to garden plots in Prairie Crossing. And so they kind of collaborated to get groups of veterans to come to Prairie Crossing every Saturday and do various, garden tasks, from just managing a garden, planting, harvesting, pretty much everything that you can do. But over the couple of years that they were doing that, it was so successful, and they saw such good results with the veterans that were a part of it, just from the educational aspect of knowing where the food comes from, but also just the therapy of it, working with the soil, cultivating life, and taking care of that. It really does something to you. So they worked in Prairie Crossing for 2 years and eventually kind of outgrew that space, and eventually contacted the city of North Chicago to find a larger space, and the city gave access to a small space on a 14-acre undeveloped plot. And so from basically 2018 and 19 and 20, the programs pretty much just kept growing every year. It grew up to 27 individual garden plots by 2019 before COVID happened. They were getting a lot of Navy recruits from the base to come and help with various projects. So they really cultivated quite the community of veterans as well as community members, which is quite unique. Then COVID happened, and even things that you wouldn't really think it affected, being outdoors and everything, it pretty much halted the entire operation. People stopped coming out. Unfortunately, over that period, Lucan passed away. Things kind of slowed down. And then after COVID, I had been working in various agricultural projects in Waukegan and North Chicago for the past 6 or so years. Basically, somebody was just like, I think that you would make a perfect fit for this job and to bring life back into it. And so I came on board 2 years ago. And in that time, we have pretty much completely maxed out our growing space. We run in conjunction with a program in Lake County called the Lake County Veterans Court. So basically any veteran, active duty, retired, any kind of offense, it could be a DUI, it can be anything. They are presented with the option, if they would like, to join up with Veterans Court, which is a sobriety program. They have hours and all sorts of, it's a very extensive program, but we're in that network. So every Saturday we host, just like how Lucan and Marshall did initially, on Saturdays we host opportunities for the veterans to get together and help various tasks from, just basic garden things, moving mulch. But they also have their own garden beds where they're able to kind of plan out what they want to grow. And so as an operations manager, I kind of facilitate all that. So we're doing the programming, I'm organizing the vets and helping them and coming up with tasks. We just installed 8 raised garden beds last year. So I'm teaching all of our gardeners square foot gardening and really how to maximize the crops in your space. It's just continually grown from there.
So everything's pretty much garden oriented, correct? Yep. For the most part?
Yep. We're focused on bringing sustainable agriculture and locally grown food to an area that just doesn't have access to it.
Actually, well, there's a lot of different things here on my notes that I see you guys have done. One of the things that I saw here is food dessert. What is food dessert?
So basically, a food desert is...
Desert, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I said dessert.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
it's because it was spelled wrong.
It's
Yeah.
spelled the same way.
A food desert is essentially any town that the residents, and there's some nuance to it, but essentially, if you live in a town where you have to leave your town specifically to get basic needs, if you have to leave the town to go to Pete's Fresh Market or to Jewel or to Mariano's or Whole Foods because you don't have one in your town, that's a food desert. All the residents that live in North Chicago, they do not have access to a grocery store. So all of those residents that live there have to leave the town to access what most people would consider a basic amenity.
Food scarcity is such a big deal. What does your organization do to influence that and to make it better, right? Yep. To improve the numbers on that.
So our whole aspect is making gardening accessible. We want somebody that has never grown something to be able to come into our space and be able to do that. Now, whether that means that this is a kid or a family that rents a plot and we physically teach them the entire process from germinating a seed to cleaning your produce. We're going to be actually hosting cooking classes with an outdoor kitchen this year to actually show people, okay, you've grown your food, you've grown your tomatoes and your butternut squash. Now here's how to not let it rot on your countertop. Here's a recipe to actually make for it. So we're facilitating that whole educational piece. And so our contribution to food scarcity is putting the power back into the community's hands of saying, like, look, you may not have a grocery store, but we have all this land, we have water, we have seeds, we have the education, we can grow it ourselves. And then integrating the veterans in all of that, giving them the mission of being able to reintegrate back into a really meaningful cause of, we're basically calling it a home front mission because it's a mission that we're doing here. We have a lot of issues, food scarcity being one of them. So being able to take somebody that might have had a greater purpose, across seas and is coming home, might be dealing with a little bit of that, I don't know what I'm doing. It really gives a purpose into that. And so being able to get the veterans actively engaged in that mission to help with food scarcity, it just creates such an awesome, sustainable network for just giving a community that doesn't have that fresh food. And we're hoping eventually to be able to host our own farmers market. There's local farmers that have distribution issues, so we're hoping to collaborate with local farmers to procure produce from them and sort of I mean, essentially like a food bank, you know, open up these sort of centers where people can come and just get food from us for free, teach them how to cook and really just get food. The biggest thing is just getting fresh local food out to as many families as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Can anybody in the community be involved other than veterans as well?
Absolutely. We're not limited to town even. You can live in Lake Bluff, you can live in Grays Lake, Lake Zurich, however far you want to drive. We don't have any rules as far as who can be a participant. You don't have to be active duty. You can be retired military. We don't really have any rules on that. We're completely open. We obviously encourage, you know, residents, you know, because the goal is to empower North Chicago and get that, but we would never turn anybody down, you know, from anywhere.
Mary, you know, I'll come back to you in regards to, you're a designer, you know, how do you feel about this project essentially that came forward?
Well, this project really excited me. The minute it was an odd situation where just a confluence of events happened. We met Calvin and Ellen, and once I heard their mission, there was a synchronicity that clicked in there, and I felt like I had been working almost my whole life towards some sort of a cause that ties in directly. You know, from me on a personal level, my father was a vet. He had battled terrible addictions. It ended up killing him. The VA took care of him for what he died of, but it never addressed the addiction situation. So when I heard that Calvin and Ellen and the entire program was geared in part towards horticultural therapy, which is another sort of a passion of mine in the background, though I'm not certified in it due to being landlocked, because there's no programs really around here anymore. There used to be one when Lucan, who started the garden, he did it through Regenstein over at the Botanic Garden. They don't have it anymore, so I would have to literally leave the state for like months at a time, which I can't do. You know, it's just not practical. But I've always loved it, and I've always researched it, and learning about it has fascinated me. And I've also wanted to somehow incorporate that in, at least for some clients. And then I realized the more I learned about it, most of my clients have challenged me over the course of the years to incorporate some sort of a therapeutic situation into their landscapes. And a lot of what I've learned over the course of 25 years of doing this is starting to come together and tie into what we need for this garden. So, you know, apart from my dad being a vet, I also found out that there's other horticultural aspects, therapeutic aspects, you know, that I've known my whole life, and most gardeners know about them too. You know, the connection to the soil and the social end of it, and how, you know, it just gives you a sense of purpose. You know, you plant a seed, you grow it, you know, you have to nurture it. You know, in order to reap its benefits, you have to be kind to the earth in order to create healthy food. I mean, it all kind of pulls together. And, you know, from the time I was a little kid, another aspect of this garden too is families working together to grow. It's a community. And when I was a child, I used to sit on a fence. This is how I got into this. I sat on a fence and watched my 95-year-old neighbor plant peonies, and I was fascinated. And at the age of 6, I'd just grill him. And he didn't show signs of dementia. He was in phenomenal shape, didn't have arthritis. And he kept going until he was about 105. And so, I mean, personally, I learned that, you know, apart from the exercise and all of the small motor skills that you use in gardening and the planning and everything that's involved that keeps your brain functioning, and the cognitive benefits, you know, from that, I started putting the pieces together after I met him, that, oh my goodness, I've been doing this my whole life. You know, that was the catalyst, but it took me like 30 some odd years to figure that out. I worked for corporate America for a while, and I was a late bloomer in this business. And when I started realizing that, oh, there's a science to it, number one, I can incorporate science and nature in what I do, because I'm a horticulturist as well. So, you know, formal training and informal training and great mentors and meeting really cool and exciting people throughout the course of the years, all felt like all that was coming together. So I got really, really excited about this project, that I could help them. Number one, that I finally had the skill set where I could help them, that there's a synchronicity of purpose in this project. All of it felt like it was coming, and the fact that I work for somebody who understands that giving back is critical to all of our survival on this planet. It all finally came together. So working on this project really hits home. I mean, even when Calvin was talking about, he wants organic food and being in a food desert and feeding children with healthy food and nurturing the soil and making sure it's healthy. There are even more benefits to that than a lot of people realize. So many chemicals are in our food supply, and this is for impoverished and, privileged people alike. A lot of people won't pay for organic food. I don't get it. I kind of do, because for me, it's expensive. But when you've got all the money in the world and you won't pay for organic or pay somebody to grow it organically and make sure that it's healthy and safe as much as possible, given, the contamination of the soil nationwide, and the limited resources, I don't understand it, but being part of the change in that movement is really important to me at this stage of my career, and spreading that message. And the fact that I have a company that supports that I work for, the fact that I have phenomenal clients who are on board with this, who actually want to support this, is another thing too. The fact that I've met Calvin and so many really incredible people, that this is at their core. That's what excites me about this project. And the fact that we can do it quickly. It's not years in the making. This is going to happen. This is going to happen quickly. And the fact that timing is everything with this. People out there want this. They're asking for it. Children, clients, the children of my clients that I've had for years and years and years. Over the course of the years, it started for me probably about 12 years ago, when a little tiny bespectacled toddler says to his parents, who didn't want to get their hands dirty at all, says, "Mommy, can I grow carrots? Mary, can I grow carrots?" And I said, "Of course you can grow carrots." And we started in a pot this big. Yeah. Seriously, and it happened. And I got the cutest picture, and I still have to get a copy of that picture. Tiny little redheaded boy, bespectacled. He was the foreign object in my client's house. He had been adopted. And we were wondering, where did he come from? Because neither parent wanted to get their hands dirty. And of course we knew, but he was a farm kid at heart. And a child of my heart, because hearing it out of the mouths of babes was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't have children. My plants, my dogs, they're all my kids. But hearing it from a live human child that had no other frame of reference except he liked carrots and wanted to grow them, it started something in me. It like ignited this flame where a lot of the clients now, their kids, it's that generation. The time is right to start this and get it moving and really get it going. And so I feel like we're all kind of on the precipice, and then COVID just made it hit home with lack of supply, empty grocery store shelves. We had food deserts all over, even though we weren't in food deserts. People were sweeping shelves. They were getting crazy.
Not food desserts.
Not food desserts, yes. Different spelling. At any rate, no, we were all without produce, fresh produce for a long time. We were without flour and sugar and butter and salt. And so
there's actually a broccoli shortage going on right now.
Exactly. And so what did people start doing? Baking, canning, things like that with what they could get their hands on, because we didn't know. People started prepping, doing that. That's a whole other thing. But bottom line is that everybody's ready for this. North Chicago needs it. They're willing to support it. Calvin and Ellen are out there. The veterans community is out there with their incredible horticultural programs. I know my dad would have benefited from that. Everything in my life feels like it's been leading up to my meeting you. It started meeting you a long time ago, but I feel like the wheels that have been spinning for years, that have just been kind of, I'm selling, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing great work, but, there's been something missing, and this is starting to be one of those pieces that's adding in, and it's clicking in place. So, and I'm thanking, Eddie and the company and Calvin and everybody for involving me in this.
Well, your passion, it's
It's
flowing
crazy.
right now. It's right over here.
I
I
met
can
him
feel
in
it.
the goosebumps. I was like, something weird is going on here. I've always been an empathic designer. Yeah. The minute I met him, I felt that. The minute I met Ellen and heard this project, the minute I met Eddie, I felt it. There was something different here. And, I want to be part of that. So it's all good.
It's a great project, without a doubt.
It
I mean,
is.
from what I'm hearing from both
and
of you.
I want to do this.
And you talked about horticulture,
Therapy
in itself. You kind of expounded on that. And for you, Calvin, like, how important is that especially for veterans that you see, on a daily basis in the not-for-profit? How important is that to you?
I think it's one of the most important things, honestly. We're at a state where more formal forms of therapies aren't necessarily working out so much. We have a huge disproportionate homeless veteran rate. There's something that's not clicking. I wish I could remember where the quote came from, but it was basically, essentially you can tell a lot about the state of a country by the way that they're treating their returning veterans. And I think that as a country, we have a lot of room to grow in that area. It's pretty sad, the state of care that our veterans get after everything that they've been through. And I think the biggest thing is what Mary said, is even if though it's just a tomato, it's like sending a second grader home with an egg, and you say, bring this home next week and make sure that the egg doesn't get broken. It's to teach that kid how to protect life, even though it's just an egg. It empowers that kid, it gives them a goal. They've got to protect this egg. Now, when you take a veteran, and I don't speak for all veterans because the job is different, depending on what you're doing, but you could have taken a life, out overseas, and so being able to come home and it might sound so silly, but even though it's just a tomato, being able to take a seed that is nothing, putting it in some dirt and watching those first 2 leaves pop up, and then it's life. And you've created that life. And now, and even with kids, it's like, it's an investment. You want to see that process all the way through. You don't want to start a tomato and then never see the fruits of the labor. You want to see, but that's months of work, right? And so I think the combination of working with the soil, the combination of knowing that this is a community and that you're giving back to the community, guarding that life and foreseeing the growth of this plant, I think it offers such a comprehensive therapeutic experience that, quite frankly, I don't really think that the studies are all comprehensive to really even prove that yet. But as you said, it's like you talk to any gardener, you talk to any cannabis farmer, anybody that's growing anything, it gives that person a sense of purpose. There's something about being connected to the life of a plant.
And the land itself.
And the land and the dirt, it's the whole thing. It's just so comprehensive. Being out in the sun and getting sunshine, vitamin D. Specifically with our program in Veterans Court, it's cultivating a community of 5 to 10 veterans that are in a space together and just having that camaraderie in nature, and then as men we tend to be pent up, and we don't wear our emotions on our sleeves, right? Like, we got to be hard, we got to show up, we can't be vulnerable. But it really gives the guys and anybody a chance to just be vulnerable, which is fine. We need that. And so horticultural therapy, being outside in nature, I think that'll take you a lot further than getting on Zoom for an hour once a week and talking to a therapist that can't see your body language or anything. I mean, there's just so much to it.
Yeah. And we're going to wrap up here soon in a bit. So the biggest thing, and any of you can answer this, so, working for, the design company and you working for the non-profit, the biggest piece of the collaboration would be your assistance with, would that be just the organization of what they're doing? and then you integrating yourself as well. How does that? How would it work? I guess generally, as an understanding for both of you, how would that combine?
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I mean, obviously beautification of any a project is a big thing, you know. So knowing that you want to give something to a town that they can be proud of was the biggest thing. And so knowing that, you know, we're in line to get $150,000 from the state of Commerce, or the Department of Commerce from the state of Illinois, which is a really big deal. And so we want to make sure that we're giving the community something that they can be proud of, visually, you know. But it's tough because when you look for landscapers to do stuff like that, there's often kind of a disconnect of the beautification versus native plants and how to work with what you have to create sustainable landscape spaces. And so, you know, I think the biggest part is Antunez, clearly they understand this. And so that's been one of the biggest breakthroughs in us talking, is just like, you just get it, you know. We have to beautify the land. We have to give them something that we're proud of, but it has to be sustainable. We want to do a lot of food forest type planting. So planting trees for the future, shade trees. We want to make forageable paths so that people can walk through our space. You start at one end with a bucket or a basket, and you come out the other end and you've got blueberries and tomatoes and cherries and everything that you can think of for free. And I think that's the biggest part of that collaboration, is just like the professional know-it-all to redesign the space in a way that makes sense and is sustainably there. So.
Well, and it can integrate into a residential environment.
Right.
As well, because this particular piece of land is right in the middle of a residential area. So the other thing too was, you know, how do we use the land? But as Calvin said, you know, making it look good and something that the neighborhood can be proud of to have in their, but also having the horticultural knowledge to back it up and plant the right trees now, because it's just a blank slate. It's basically, you know, mulch and boxes, and, you know, there are no trees, there are no shrubs, there's nothing there. So it's taking what is you know, basically a wasted space of nothingness, and, you know, adding something of value back into the community. You add a tree, you know, help reduce a carbon footprint. You're off-gassing that. You're checking the soil to make sure that it's, you know, clean, and you know, you're adding pollinators to the land. And in the meantime, you are helping a group of people with the veterans and with the community to get their hands dirty. And it has been proven, science is backing this up, finally, that the microbes in soil strengthen the immune system. The exercise is great for you. It's wonderful for cognition. So they're having great success with horticultural therapy in many groups of people, you know, from imperiled youth, children that have developmental and learning disabilities. All of a sudden are coming out of, or they're actually learning small muscle control. You have elderly folks that if they keep gardening, they slow the progression of dementia by, I believe the latest statistic on that was 37%. Eating healthy food, by the way, and a lot of those dementias were just proven to be misdiagnosed. I think it was the Cleveland Clinic was working on a study. They were misdiagnosed nutrient deficiencies. So in the elderly, just as, you know, as children who live in food deserts, elderly live there too. This is the other thing too. And they're not getting proper nutrition. They're eating a lot of processed food. And the misdiagnosis for dementia is ridiculous. They've proven that eating healthy food can actually improve cognition and, you know, stave it off for many, many years. So eating fresh, healthy, good food, canning, cooking, planting, growing, nurturing something from the beginning to the end teaches children, veterans. It connects you with the earth. It makes you a part of the bigger whole, which is the planet. And it's crazy. I can get off my soapbox now, but it's super valuable to have something like this project in the neighborhood. And I'm grateful to everything that's come together to help me be part of this, and that I can put some of what I've learned throughout the years to good use to help them and continue this incredible mission that they're on, you know, to eliminate the food desert, to help the veterans, to help children, and everybody out there who wants to be involved with this. And keeping it open for that is fantastic. I don't live in North Chicago, but would I garden there? Yes, absolutely. Because you know what? I have all shade. My neighbors planted trees. So I can't grow a vegetable to save my life in my yard except in a pot out front. So if I want anything bigger than that, if I want to feed my family, it's, you know, I need the land that Calvin has to offer, and I'm happy to share the surplus with everything, and I'm happy to help out with in any way I can. So, you know, that is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, they have an amazing, you know, mission.
Hearing both of you speak, and listen, I'm a sports guy. I do sports, radio, and TV broadcasting. So a lot of these terms are semi-foreign to me, but the consensus of what you both are bringing to the table for such a project like this sounds amazing, right? And helpful in many different ways. I'm very impressed with it as well. You know, Calvin, you talked about the grant and you know, a major grant that you guys are receiving. I'm sure that's a huge you know, check mark, you know, to be able to assist what you're doing.
Well, it's a big deal as well for the state, I think. And just to know that the state is willing to, I mean, $150,000 is a lot of money. It makes me feel good. You know, I think a lot of people are concerned with the government, what they're really doing for us. And so, you know, a good piece of news, you know, I mean, knowing that the government's willing to invest $150 into developing sustainable agricultural, you know, in a food desert, that's pretty cool. That's pretty good news.
That's great. Eddie had let me know about the project a couple days ago, and I'm always game for something positive, and especially for the community. I actually, I'm in North Chicago myself with a family member who's has a ministry out there, and he's, besides the ministry, his goal is to help that area out as well. So North Chicago does need help, and it's receiving it. I can see it from the outside. So you two guys are a big part of that, so most definitely. So you guys have a lot of goals, you know, coming up here. I know there's some real recent goals that you have for the next 2-3 years. What do those look like for you?
So after everything's said and done, and we've worked with Antunez, and our garden space is completely redesigned, and that's behind us, we've got 2 local partnerships with Roberti Culinary Pathway Institute and Cool Learning, which are 2 local Lake County youth development programs. We're developing an outdoor kitchen space, so we're going to be bringing in chefs from Roberti Culinary. The kids from Cool Learning are actually going to grow produce that's intentionally going to be used by Roberti. So I think it's one Saturday a month, Roberti will be coming out with their chef. They're going to be hosting a free public cooking class with things that are in season, sending home recipe cards to people, that part of that food education program of like, how do you use the food? Beyond that, we're hoping that we will more than double our garden capacity, offering a veterans-only component to our garden, if they would like it. It's been expressed by a couple of veterans that they would like a space for them. So we're gonna have a veterans-only side of the garden, and then the rest of the garden's gonna be completely mixed. We're going to be setting up a farmer incubation program. So if you are a community gardener and you are taking it very seriously and doing very well, we aim to be able to set you up with a larger plot of land that is separate from our community garden and incubate you in that way, so then you can hit farmers market to make a career out of that. And beyond that, it's just going to be a lot of community outreach for the next 2 years and letting the town know that we're here and we're here for you.
How can they reach out to you guys, you know, inquiries or just in general?
Yep, so we have a website, growinghealthyveterans.org. We have a Facebook that's the same. My email is calvin@growinghealthyveterans.org. It's really important for me to say that, you know, even though we got the $150,000, none of that money can be used for paying any salaries or anything like that. And so with all of this new infrastructure, we're going to need at least a couple more employees. We have donations on our website. We have a GoFundMe. But if there's anybody that you know that has a passion in urban agriculture and maybe wants to support through volunteering or just money donations or tools or anything, they can reach out to me either on the Facebook or the email.
Well, thank you guys for both being here today. We also want to thank Cove Studios for having us here in downtown Chicago, Eddie for organizing it, and it's been great meeting both of you.
Nice meeting you too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching.